Good morning, everyone. It's Sunday morning, Sunday, December 21st. And welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. I kind of forgot what I was going to say for a sec.
Well, it's the shortest day of the year, you know, it is.
Well, let's do look on the bright side.
From here
Tomorrow, we
here
start gaining daylight back. That's my favorite part.
yeah, from here on in, the days are getting longer. Yeah,
That's right. It's the solstice. Do you do anything woo woo for the solstice? I know you're really into woo woo stuff.
I drink coffee, you know,
Good.
it's all
Let's
good.
let some people join here. I'm gonna pull up our little post. So it is, yes, 21st. It's the solstice, and we had a very big football game yesterday in Montana. It was actually broadcast nationally between Montana State and the Montana Grizzlies, University of Montana Grizzlies. Holy cow. We were kind of texting throughout the game. The Grizzlies did not do well, and by the end, it was very clear that Montana State was the, who earned the win.
Yeah, well, the Grizzlies started out slow and they ended worse. Uh, Middle, they played pretty well, you know.
For a minute, I thought, "This is a really great game, this is a close game," and then, man, the Bobcats just rolled.
You sent me a text, and then all of a sudden, it wasn't a really good game. It was an ass whooping, you know.
Yeah.
It was, but that's cool. The cats are going to go play in the national championship game, but they should win the national championship, not to put undue pressure on the Cats, but the truth is that the lower seeds are the one that won on the other side of the bracket. So yesterday's game, in my opinion, was really the national championship game.
Oh,
But we will see. We will
okay.
see. Take nothing away from Illinois State, who I'm sure is very, very good. They beat the number one seed in North Dakota. So they're probably not a bunch of pushovers, but by the same token, if the Cats play like they did yesterday, I think it's going to be really tough for anybody to beat them. They played really well and deserved to win that game. No
They
doubt
sure
about
did, they sure did. We wanna say congratulations to, Montana State Bobcats headed to the national championship. And what was the other thing I was gonna ask you about before we get into, like, real news? Oh, did you play the Powerball?
No, but I didn't know nobody sent me a text saying it was at 1.6 billion. I mean, that's starting to become real money. I mean,
Well, that's
1.6, quite a bit of money.
that's after last night, there was no winner.
Yeah,
So now you have to go so here's your text, here's your live audible text.
yeah.
Go go buy a Powerball
I
ticket if you wanna
I
play.
I don't know that I've bought a handful of tickets my entire life, of Powerball, so maybe this is what do you stop at a where do you go? You go to like a gas station or a grocery store? Where you buy them?
Really? You've never
No.
bought a lottery ticket?
No, I've never no, because I figured no, I mean, when they say that you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning than win the lottery, I don't wanna get struck by lightning, so I figure why take the chance of winning the lottery, you know?
Well, I think it probably would be like, it'd be great initially, and then I bet it'd be a hard life if you won the lottery, like, people would be coming after you, I mean
So, here's what you do, if you win, trust me, Maritza, I'll do this, you just give me the money, and I'll make sure that I spend it in a way that helps the economy, okay?
that's so kind of you, Senator, that's so kind of you. I don't play often, but when it gets to this size of a jackpot, I
So,
play
le
'cause you can't
let's
win
just
again.
well, you gotta tell me where to buy tickets now, tell me where you
Oh
go.
my
You go
gosh, you go to a gas
to
station. You go to a
gas
gas
station.
station, you can't you
And
have
do I
to
ask
have
for something? Because there's, like, all sorts of lottery tickets out there. So you have to ask for Powerball or what?
Powerball. Yes, it's the
You'll go to a machine,
Powerball.
you go to the clerk.
You go to the clerk and you can fill out your own numbers, like, if like,
Now,
you're in Charlotte's anniversary or whatever, and then or you can have it computer generated.
I'll do the computer thing because if I'm gonna be lucky, I wanna be totally lucky. I don't wanna have there be any sense to it whatsoever.
That's good. But you're in a good spot because usually these winners come, like, out of the middle of nowhere, so go to, like, a random
I'm in.
you're
Yeah.
in.
So I can't buy it at a place like Great Falls. I have to buy it like,
Oh, no, Great Falls would be okay.
I have to buy it at Kenilworth, right?
Can you buy a lottery ticket in Kenilworth, Montana?
No, I
Is there a
don't think so.
store in Kenilworth?
There's no lottery stand at Kenilworth. No, there's not.
I think Great Falls would be okay.
Okay,
Great Falls
alright.
would be okay. Yeah, Great Falls would
Well,
be okay.
when I stop in to buy some corn nuts, I'll pick up the phone.
Hey, that's my favorite gas station is there too. All right, so here's the deal. We're
So
shooting
I got
shit.
one more question. Let's just if you're gonna buy a ticket to
Yeah, I had
Harlem.
one for last night and there
So
was a
if
win.
you win, what is the first thing that you buy for yourself?
Gosh, I don't know. I'd probably go on vacation right away. I like to travel, you know
Go
that.
to Disneyland. Go to Disneyland.
Yeah, I'd probably go to Disneyland. That's
Life really isn't gonna change a damn bit.
well, it will be because I just won't worry about anything, and then you know, for me, this is you're not gonna believe me when I say this, but this is the truth. I'd like to have that kind of money so that when I see people who need help with this or that, I could just, like, make it rain. Like you? Yeah, you need the help?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's
How
the
high
first thing you'd buy?
I'd buy a, I'd buy me a brand new you could guess this, a brand new, like, the C06 Corvette. Just ridiculous
Oh.
stuff that'll go, like, way faster than you could ever drive it, and I'd never drive it that fast, but just
Well,
one of
wait,
those things.
manual transmission, right?
No, I go
Come on. Just start
they're all automatic now, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You cannot judge me because I think they all have automatics, which will change gears faster than you could do manually anyway, so it works, yeah.
but
So that's it.
if you have $1.6 billion, you can customize that. You could make it manual.
Well, no, you don't need to because as you buy that car, there's really no need to customize. For all our listeners, I was going to try to get, one of the announcers on from one of the like Mecum or Barrett Jackson or something that talks about these cars, and I was vetoed. I was vetoed because Marisa said, "Our viewers don't expect to hear about cars on our podcast. They wanna hear about policy and politics and what's going on with the Epstein files and how come
Yeah.
Venezuela got a blockade around it, and why we're bombing boats that we think have drugs on them, but we really don't know for sure, and that kind of stuff, which, I mean, it's silly. Why would you wanna talk about that kind of stuff when you could talk about cars?
Listen, I think we can talk about cars. I don't know if it fits the genre of our podcast to have an entire guest about cars, but if I am wrong, like, let us know, folks, let us know. We have a couple we have a couple people, Archie and Mary wanna say hi, from Corvallis. Hi to them.
Corvallis, Montana.
Montana joining
One of the
us. We
most
have Sam.
beautiful places on earth. I don't wanna have a whole bunch of people moving to Corvallis because they already are, but, it's true. In fact, my grandson's roommate is from Corvallis.
Mm,
Played played
wait,
football
at MSUN?
at EMSUN, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Sam from Minneapolis says if we win, we should buy a ticket to Minneapolis. I mean, that would probably happen for me too. So let's just talk about what we have going on today. It is the Sunday before Christmas, so we thought we would release an episode today and then likely take the week off unless something big happens. Like neither of us are that tied down. We'll get on here and shoot the shit
Yeah,
with you.
chances are we're gonna be on before Christmas because
Yeah, we'll see. But
it's always
we are releasing an episode today to talk really all about food. Food, how much it's costing us, the price increases, why we're seeing the price increases, what we can do to fix it, what the government can do to fix it. And this was your brainchild, Senator.
that was actually my brother's brainchild, but that aside, true, I gotta give credit where credit is due. I mean, it's what everybody's talking about, truthfully, is food inflation and what can be done about it, and it man, like I said earlier, when I go into a grocery store and I can tell the difference when I seldom buy food, but I can tell the difference, we got a challenge, and it can't be solved by people standing up and saying, "Well, price of food is dropping dramatically since I took office," and, I don't do a very good Donald Trump impression, by the way.
Yeah, that's not I think you should work on that.
I should work on one. It has to be done by actually putting forth policies that will help do, and we talk about it on this show since we've already recorded it. I'll just let you a little input that we've talked about some of the things that Congress, Article 1 Constitution, Congress can do to actually move the needle on food prices. And, we'll see if, any of the folks in the Senate or the House actually watch our podcast, and maybe they'll come up with some, some policies that could actually help working Americans and kind of stop this insanely crazy time we're in where even food is becoming unaffordable.
Yeah, it's a good conversation, and I know for a fact we do have some members of Congress who are subscribers to our Substack.
Oh, and I see you look at that stuff. This is kind of like this is kinda like donors do a campaign. Everybody said, "Well, that person, don't you know who donates to campaign?" No, I don't. I never look at that stuff. And I don't look at who's subscribing to our podcast. I should, because this actually puts money in Marisa Giorgio's pocket.
Uh,
That's really a good he needs it.
yeah,
Because
that's right, and nothing goes to you.
she didn't win the lottery, let's just put it that way, okay?
Alright, well, this could be a tangent, I'm gonna stop it. I'm going to do the right thing, and we're gonna start talking about some headlines. How does that sound?
Cool, let's go. Let's
Okay.
dance.
Epstein.
Yeah,
I that's all I need to say, Epstein. So, the Department of Justice was required by law to release the Epstein files on Friday, everything the DOJ had, and, we didn't see a complete drop. We saw a drip, and we saw
yeah,
more of a drip yesterday. We're gonna see more of a drip. The DOJ was supposed to justify not only release everything, but the law that was signed, by the president said that they had to justify all the redactions with a written explanation. So things like you would expect to protect victims, survivors, etcetera. The files released focused a lot on former President Bill Clinton, and I called you even because they put up this database, right? And you can search it. One of the photos that were included in the drop was this photo. And so, this is a photo of the former president, Bill Clinton, with Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, and then 3 blacked out faces, right? And this was supposed to be, there was no explanation for it, but a lot of people jumped on like this tweet shows, right? But then readers who are very smart went to the Getty Images website, and this is actually just a photo from an event, and the blacked out faces were the children of Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. So there have been some problematic things that have come up in this drop. Um, and Bill Clinton's camp responded and they said, quote, "The White House hasn't been hiding these files for months, only to dump them late on a Friday to protect Bill Clinton. This is about shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they'll try and hide forever." So they can release as many grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want, but this isn't about Bill Clinton, never has, never will be. Even Susie Wiles said Donald Trump was wrong about Bill Clinton. So that's what the Clinton camp is saying. Do you want to weigh in or you want me to keep going? Because there's more.
well, I mean, no, I think that what this really speaks to the fact is that the administration has no respect for Congress, no respect whatsoever. Congress passed a bill saying you need to release this stuff and you need to explain your redactions. And quite frankly, the Department of Justice gave them both middle fingers. Okay, both of them. And what's Congress going to do about it? I haven't heard. And they released them, by the way, on a Friday, which is when you release bad stuff if you're a politician, because everybody's thinking about the weekend, so it's a really slow news day.
Friday before the holiday.
Friday before the holidays, which I mean, look, the 20th was the date put in the bill, so that's fine. That's the way it was. I'm sure they had thought about that before they put that date in. But the bottom line is, people ought to know, and the Department of Justice should not be working for the President of the United States or anybody, any specific person in this country. They should be working for the country as a whole. And Congress passed a bill that says you're going to release the Epstein files. And these guys are fucking around doing whatever they can do to withhold information. And it just makes the story worse. And the drip, drip, drip continues to make the story worse. But evidently, and I'm going to tell you, the president's done some god awful things in his life. I mean, things that most people would never get away with without paying a price for it and being held accountable. But evidently, this stuff is beyond the pale because they just don't want it out there. And they're trying to deflect and they're trying to go a different direction. They're trying to say this guy's the bad guy and the president is not. The fact is, this ain't going away, folks. This is not going away. And it's not me that's doing the stuff. There are people in Congress that are going to continue to make this an issue. There are people in the private sector that are going to make this an issue. And the fact is, the president promised to release the files when he ran for president. And we have this kind of shit that's going on. It's crazy. It is absolutely insane. You want me to say anything else?
No, I'm gonna keep going though, because there's more. So you
Yeah.
might have more to say. I know you were gonna say Congress hasn't done anything, but we are
Oh,
hearing.
Congress passed a bill.
Oh,
Congress
yeah,
passed
no,
and the
right.
administration has so little regard for Congress that they don't really give a shit what Congress did because they're running this show and they want to prove everybody that nobody counts anymore. The courts don't count, Congress don't count. It's only the president of the United States, period. And that's the way I see it.
So we have people on both sides of the aisle frustrated, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she put this out, and she said 2 things that are not MAGA, and she talked about Ben Shapiro attacking Tucker Carlson. But then the second was the heavily redacted Epstein files being released, failure to release them all by the lawful deadline, and redacting politically exposed individuals and government officials. She said people are raging and walking away. So the Associated Press found that at least 16 files that were part of that initial release then just disappeared from the database after they were initially released. One of those files had multiple photos of the president with Epstein. And then there was another document from a 2017 lawsuit. And I'm going to put this in our Substack article when we post this. But initially, it showed, these forms of testimony and emails and documents from this lawsuit. And it initially included the name Donald Trump and included allegations about sexual encounters that happened at Epstein's home. Well, then suddenly those files remained up, but then suddenly the president's name was redacted. And it wasn't just the president's name, there were multiple other people redacted who were being accused. So I think that this is something, like you said, it's not going away. As we know, the age of internet sleuthing is alive and well. People are going to obsess over this. And I will also say that Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey, they're on some of the Sunday shows this morning, and we'll go watch those. But they basically said they're in the process of drafting articles of impeachment against the Attorney General Pam Bondi over this.
So I have never believed that the folks who work for the government are the deep state. I've never believed that they have a different agenda than the people who we elect to Congress and to the President of the United States until all this. And I think Trump has put forth what he has claimed has been terrible, the deep state. We got a deep state. We got a group of people that are not elected in government right now that are not doing what Congress told them to do at all. They're hiding information. They're redacting information that the people have the right to know because Congress said we have the right to know. And so those folks out there that were worried about the deep state under Bush or under Obama or under Biden or under Clinton or under Reagan or whoever they want to talk about, that I don't believe was a problem and I don't think it existed. But damn, man, if you're worried about the deep state, then you ought to really be worried about it now because they're doing shit that shouldn't be done. And by the way, those folks need to be held accountable too.
Robert, who's watching us on YouTube, made a good point, and I meant to talk to you about this too. But it's not just that they're redacting certain names. They didn't redact some names that they should have. There was a Jane Doe that posted a letter from her attorneys that were sent to the DOJ that said, "Hey, you posted our client's name, and it should be redacted." So that's also, I mean, it just seems like a mess. And I know it's a lot of files, and they had 30 days, but that's
You know,
that's a pretty big deal.
when you were a little kid, Marisa, not that you ever lied, but if you ever lied, man, it was tough because you had to remember those lies. And that's the problem here. These folks are lying and they're having a hard time remembering the lies. And they ought to just come clean. The truth will set you free. And it's it's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy because when Epstein came up, I thought, well, this is bad, but it's obviously because they're holding the information back much worse than I ever thought.
Well,
Much worse.
and we know that no party is saved in these files. I mean, there are people on both sides, across the political spectrum, across entertainment, across the rich and powerful, right?
Yep.
Um, so it's something that I don't know if we'll ever know the full scope of the truth. I
Oh,
hope we do, and
well,
I
I
hope
think,
you know.
by the way, we will. I think it's just gonna take a lot of time. And those folks who are going to church this morning, because it's Sunday morning, and they're listening and talking to one another in the fellowship halls, talking about how great of a guy Donald Trump is. I hope they're paying attention because this is really counter to uh, Christianity in my book in a big, big way.
We wanna say hi to Andy from Colorado, says that he's hi from Colorado from you too.
Uh,
Okay, so here's the other deal.
Yep.
Um, we have this whole thing with Venezuela.
Yep.
And we had the primetime address, last week, and I thought we might hear more about Venezuela, we really didn't, but again, we're learning this morning that the United States seized another vessel off the coast of Venezuela Saturday, and so this was after they boarded that vessel earlier this month and then also announced a blockade of all of oil tankers going in and out of Venezuela. So the Venezuelan vice president basically said that their country rejects the theft and what he called a hijacking of a new private vessel transporting Venezuelan oil, and then he said that they're gonna take appropriate actions, including reporting this to the United Nations Security Council and other governments of the world.
Yeah, and they'll find out the legality of it. I think that the issue that I have, and I'm not the judge and jury here, so I don't know if what they did was legal or not. Hijacked the oil tanker, but I will tell you the bottom of the boats when they're not even sure that they're carrying drugs. And as was pointed out to us by Susan Rice, this stuff isn't even coming to the U.S. It's cocaine that's heading somewhere or to Europe. When they're blowing these things out of the water when it's really fentanyl, and what are you doing with China and all that stuff. And look, the president says all the right things, but he does just the opposite every damn time. And so that's really what the crime is in my book. Now, the oil vessel, different story. And if it happened to any other country, and they said they were going to go to the United Nations and multilateral organizations and find out if it's legal or not, yeah, I don't deny them that due process. But really, the real challenge here is that the Secretary of Defense or War, or whatever you want to call it, is out there bombing vessels that they're not even sure have drugs on them. It's judge, jury, executioner, and that's really not how this country is set up.
Well, and they will say that they do know, but there's been frustration in the halls of Congress when they've asked for, you know, more
Well, if
information and videos and
they do know, then get the damn information out. Get the information out. I mean, this is the same thing we're just talking about with the Department of Justice and the Epstein files. Drip, drip, drip. Oh yeah, trust us. We're going to do this. No, I don't trust a guy who's gone bankrupt 6 or 7 times and doesn't pay his bills. Get the information out. Let's see what's going on. And I don't even want to get into the guy that's running the Department of Defense. He's nothing short of an alcoholic that's making decisions that impact our servicemen and women every damn day. It's crazy.
okay, so the last thing I wanted to get your take on this morning is that the DNC
Yeah.
ordered an autopsy, a postmortem on what happened, what went wrong for Democrats in 2024. And now the DNC chair says that releasing that report's a bad idea. It would be a distraction. We need to look forward. A lot of Democrats are not happy about that. Some Democrats are on board saying, yeah, we need to look forward. Others think it's a big mistake. So I wanted to get your take on this because as we see fractures, over decisions in both parties, and this is kind of the latest within the Democrats.
Yeah, so I happen to be on the ballot in 2024, and I can tell them what's wrong right now. We dealt with social issues almost exclusively, and we didn't deal with kitchen table issues. That's what that autopsy will show if it's an honest autopsy. And what it shows to me is that Democrats have to stand for something, and it's got to be more than the social issues. Much, much more. The social issues are important, but they need to be secondary to issues like inflation and affordability and what's happening to this country internationally. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So uh, the fact of the matter is that Democrats are not speaking to people in a way that people can relate with them. And in fact, they're doing just the opposite. And in the end, until they get their shit in a pile, they're going to continue to be a minority party. And there's a lot of opportunity out there, especially with this president and his tariffs and all the other policies he put in that don't make much sense. You need to stand for something, folks. And you can start with inflation and affordability and jobs and the economy and work off of that. But the truth is, there's a lot of international issues that need to be brought to the fore. The fact is, our strength has always come from our allies, and this president's pushing our allies away and embracing the dictatorships around the world. All that stuff is bad, and we need to make a case for it. And by the way, there's so much stuff out there right now that Democrats have to be careful not to make the list too long. Stick with my opinion, and I would say stick with 3 to 5 issues, drive them home, and you'll do much better in the 2026 election. But you can't be talking about them in a way that doesn't make it real. These issues have to be real issues that America's families, small businesses, family farm and ranch agriculture, working families are dealing with every day. And there's a lot of things out there, so many that aren't going right now, that it's a target rich environment. So that's what I would say. They didn't need to do an autopsy. The fact is, anybody had a brain could see what happened last election, and they voted for a convicted felon over our candidate. We got some challenges. Okay.
So you don't think the autopsy was needed at all?
No, I think it was obvious what the problems were right off the
Yeah.
shoot. And if you want to do an autopsy, just go walk down the street in any town in between the two mountain ranges and ask people how they feel about Democrats, and they'll tell you. So you got to pull your head out of your ass, and you got to start talking about issues that people care about. Period.
It's time to welcome our guest for today's episode. We want to welcome Scott Faber. Last week, Senator Tester called me and said, "Hey, we really need to do something about food prices." And I know just the guy. And that guy is Scott Faber, Senior Vice President for Government Affairs for the Environmental Working Group. You also teach food and farm law at Georgetown. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, come take my class.
That'd be great. Yeah, if I could get into Georgetown.
I
Yes,
might I might know somebody.
but I'm going to be doing a fellowship at Georgetown this spring. Yeah.
Really? Alright.
Yeah.
In
So
per
I'm gonna, yeah,
Oh, wow.
I might have to invite you over for one of my seminars.
Only if you come over for one of my seminars.
I'd be more than happy to.
The deal.
So look, I met Scott Faber, shit, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe. It's a long time ago.
That
Talking about farm policy and how we get money to family farmers and how it shouldn't go to the industrial base, but more the folks who are out there actually growing food and really pushing our economy forward, and adding to food security. Well, it's no secret that, in fact, I just saw it on the news this morning. The number one concern about inflation is houses, and we just got to build some more of those. And there's some tax credits things they could do at the federal level to help that happen. But the other thing is food, and if you look like me, you spend a lot of time in a grocery store, okay, and you're buying food all the time. And I'm going to tell you, when I notice that food is expensive, if food is getting really expensive. And it's the same thing when I talk to folks wherever I'm at. I don't care if I'm in rural America or in urban areas. The bottom line is that food is a big deal. So, as a farmer myself, I can tell you that the price we're getting at the farm gate ain't so very good. But the price I'm paying as a consumer when I go to the grocery store is pretty amazing. So,
Mhm.
what the hell's happening? Is the que and we're
Is
gonna
that your lead question? What the hell is happening?
that's the best I could do, you know? What the hell is going on? But the first
So
thing I want to tell you is this, that there's a lot of stuff impacting. If you wanna go into tariffs, you can. If and look, let's just start out. Well, Maritza will rip you apart as soon as you make your opening statement, okay? So be careful. But tell me how you see the lay of the land in the land of food.
yeah, well, I think a lot of consumers, especially farmers, but not just farmers, are all puzzled because farmers are earning less than they have in recent years, especially folks who grow the things you grow, or corn or soybeans or other commodities. And yet, if those commodities are the price of those commodities are so low, why is the price of food so high? And so there are many reasons, but it's not because of anything that's happening on the farm. The farm, as you know, John, the farmer only gets on average about 15% of the food dollar. Most of the cost of food is the cost of labor, energy, the cost of processing the food, marketing the food, retailing the food. And so the big drivers of food inflation are not what's happening on the farm. The big drivers of food inflation are first and foremost tariffs. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that, but also rising labor costs, energy costs, transportation costs, all things that the government could address in different ways. Unfortunately, this administration is choosing to make the price of food worse by, in particular, putting tariffs on things that we tend not to grow here in the United States, which of course just acts like a tax and drives up the price we pay. The other thing that, as you know better than anyone, that's impacting the price of food is concentration. Concentration both in the number of people that farmers can buy things from, whether that's inputs or farm machinery or so on, as well as the number of things farmers can sell things to, and concentration among grocers. And there was just in 2024 a report by the Federal Trade Commission that found that grocers were charging us consumers more than they needed to cover their costs. And you look at things like their margins, you see, in fact, grocery stores are doing much better than they need to, and much better than they've done historically. So there are a bunch of factors, one of which is the rising cost of labor, energy, manufacturing, freight transportation, but also grocers taking a little bit more out of the till than they should. And there are things that Congress could do about that as well.
So let's go ahead, Marie. So you go ahead, and then I'll jump in.
Well, I mean, you talk about so many things, and when we were chatting, Scott, you said there's just like no great single resource that explains all of this
Indeed.
in easy to understand ways. I mean, we just go to the store and say, "Holy cow, the cost of this or this or this." It's just unbelievable. But to think about all of the things that are interconnected, and one of the studies that you sent me pointed to, um, I mean, so many things, but global trade, like you said, tariffs, but also weather, climate change, animal and plant diseases, Russia, Ukraine. I mean, all of these things happening all at once, not to mention coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic and the supply chains. I mean, there's just so much working, it seems like working against us. So I guess the question I have is what levers could our government be pulling
Yep.
to
Well,
ease some of this?
sure. Well, the simplest thing we could do would be to lower the tariffs on things like seafood, fruits and vegetables that we don't grow here in the United States. And just, I'm sure everybody knows, but some of the fruits and vegetables we import come from Mexico, which are not subject to tariffs, but a lot of them are not grown in Mexico and are things we generally don't grow here. Bananas is the classic example, but there are lots of other things that we import from other countries because we can't grow them here, and we put tariffs on those. So removing those tariffs would immediately lower the price. One of the big factors that's driving the cost of everything, but especially food manufacturing, is the rising price of energy.
Right.
And we could all do things. Our federal government, our state governments could do things to invest more in the cheapest forms of energy, which is no longer fossil energy, but is renewable energy. So, in the short and long run, we could be doing things to reduce the cost of making food. Some of the things you mentioned, Maritza, are things that impact certain sectors, like avian flu impacting egg prices, or all of the change we're seeing in the weather, to be generous, that has caused a long-term drought that in turn has impacted forage quality and shrunk beef herds to levels we've not seen since before I was born. Those are things that are harder to address, but are still things the government could take proactive steps to address in the medium and long term. So, but there's two things we could do right away to help address people who are just struggling to get by. One is making sure the poorest people in the country, the 40 million people who are relying on SNAP just to have enough to eat, are getting their benefits and that those benefits aren't being cut. And the second thing is rolling back some of the tariffs. Those are just acting like a tax, especially tariffs on the things we just don't produce here in the United States.
You think we would see immediate impact?
Immediate impact, in the sense that you in weeks and months, not years, but not maybe not days, but immediate impact on things like seafood, some fruits and vegetables. You
Yeah.
know, when John was just getting into farming, most of the things we imported from other countries were bulk commodities. Now we import mostly finished food products, fruits and vegetables, uh, things that, go right to the grocery store. There's been a dramatic change in the last 40 to 50 years, in what we import from other countries, and that's a good thing. That means we have more things year round. When John and I were kids, that wasn't the case. So, um, but it means we're also more dependent on those countries. If we put tariffs on those products, then the price of them is just gonna go up.
I wanna pull on one more thread before I'm sorry, Senator, I wanna railroad you for a second. You're
Go
used
ahead. I'm ready for him when you get done with it.
but you talked about, things the government could be doing. And we know, you talk about tariffs, but there are other things that the government's doing that are actually going against us. So one thing, when you talk about animal disease, we see this administration, they canceled work on a bird flu vaccine earlier this year. Just over the weekend, bird flu is now showing up in cattle or cows, dairy cows, I think, actually, in Wisconsin. I mean, why? Like, it just seems like these decisions are being made and they're short-sighted decisions, not realizing that down the road they're gonna impact us, at least our prices.
Oh, I mean, those are terrible, misguided, irresponsible decisions, right? Like, if there's one thing government can do that helps all farmers and consumers is make sure that we don't have another outbreak of bird flu that not only jumps to other animals, but ultimately jumps to people and makes a lot of folks sick. So that's an easy one that it's just one of those basic, like highways and schools kind of things that government ought to do for sure. I think the other thing that it doesn't get as much attention is what we can be doing to address transportation costs. So a lot of attention comes to gets paid to energy, and of course we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to energy policy, and we're making energy more expensive in lots of ways. We're also not doing much nearly enough to make sure that transportation costs are falling. So while the price of gas may seem low to folks who are going to the gas station right now, the cost of freight transportation is continuing to go up. And so there are lots of things that we could do there. And then the third thing that I know I'm sure Senator wants to talk about as well is, we've fortunately have not approved any new mergers that have increased concentration
Mm.
in the grocery sector or in other sectors. But we're not using the powers of the Sherman Act and other antitrust laws to begin to think about breaking up some of these monopolies so that we're getting a fairer price at the grocery store, that farmers are getting a fairer price at the when they sell to a meat and poultry processor, that farmers aren't paying too much when they're buying their farm equipment or their inputs. So, we just the DOJ went after one of the big tech providers for acting in a monopolistic way. It's time to start looking at some of these parts of the food supply chain as well.
Yeah, and that's what I wanna touch base with a little bit. You talked about tariffs, you talked about, research and development being, um, flushed down the toilet, talked about freight transportation going up, which is interesting because, the price of gas and diesel are down. Why that's continues to go up more than just the labor cost is interesting, but they do. I mean, the parts that go into these trucks, uh, the equipment costs more because of the tariffs that are put on a lot of the stuff that's used to build the over the road equipment to haul the freight. But I want to talk about consolidation, and I want to talk about it in two different areas, Scott. I want to talk about it from a manufacturing standpoint and an input standpoint. And then I also, because not a lot of folks been talking about the grocery standpoint, because you brought it up, and talk about the grocery standpoint. So kind of give us a lay of the land on where we're at on consolidation in the food industry today.
Well, as you know, the core four, the big four, control much of the input side of the equation. They control, anywhere from 60 to 90% of the manufacture of fertilizer, pesticides, seeds,
What
other
are the core
inputs.
4?
The core four, the largest four entities, that own, the sort of what percentage of the market do they own? We, in the world of folks who worry about antitrust and agriculture, refer to those as the core four, the biggest four players, and it's different in each sector, but in the pesticide, fertilizer, farm machinery, and other parts of the supply chain that sell to farmers, the consolidation has grown to now anywhere from 60 to 90% of those folks control have it act like almost like a monopoly over the things we sell to farmers. We've also seen rapid consolidation in the markets that farmers sell to, especially in the meat and poultry sectors. But that's also true for the grocery sector. So there's been a lot of consolidation in the grocery sector. There are some big players who now control more than 20% each of the grocery sector because they bought some of their rivals. There was a proposed merger between Albertsons and Kroger's that was rejected, but by and large, most of the grocery everyone who's watching us knows, there are only about half a dozen grocery chains that control the majority of grocery sales in the United States, and that gives them enormous power. It's the reason that they've been able to see their profits increase from what were about 2%, marginal profits are about 2% before the COVID to now be about 3% post-COVID. Um, and there's not much we can do about it, right? There aren't when I was when Senator and I were kids, there were lots of independent grocers that would act as a check on the big grocery chains. Those are mostly gone now. So we're stuck with the system. There's been no real effort to look at whether they've now exercised monopolistic control in a way that might require the kinds of breakups that DOJ and others have proposed for some of the big tech providers. So that's something that we ought to be thinking about as we're looking at ways to address all of the rising impact of grocery prices.
So Scott, on the fertilizer,
Yep.
the herbicide, I would imagine the seed side, they're probably all the same companies? Who are
Uh, yep. Well, as you know, the seed and pesticide companies all integrated about 20 years ago. So the biggest players, the four biggest players on the seed side are Bayer, Corteva, ChemChina, and BASF, and for globally, they control more than half of all seed sales. Um, and then they also have a huge monopoly over agrochemical sales or pesticide sales as well. Fertilizer, the four largest firms, CF, Nutrien, Koch, and Yara, control about 77% of all fertilizer sales for nitrogen fertilizer in the US, and about 90% of all phosphate fertilizer in the US. So there's just as you know better than anyone, the big players have bought up more and more of the supply chain, which has made it easier and easier to charge farmers more for the things they need to grow our food. And you have the same problem on the other side of the economic vice, where are not only fewer and fewer people to buy from, there are few and fewer people to sell to, especially in the meat and poultry processing center. But on the input side, it's not just limited to fertilizer and seed and pesticides. There's been a lot of consolidation in the equipment industry as well, especially among large tractors. Deere, CNH, AGCO now control three companies now control 95% of all sales in the US, and three companies control 97% of all combine sales in the US. So it's an economic vice that's just squeezing, especially the smaller and operators, and making it more expensive to farm and earning them less at the farm gate when it's time to sell.
Yeah, and Deere, I think, is the only one who manufactures in the US. I think the others are outside the US, and so consequently, those tariffs have an added effect because, um, from my perspective, Deere has been traditionally pretty damn expensive on their equipment, to be honest with you, and now the other guys can be just as expensive on their equipment, if not more so. So, um, we'll get to groceries in a second, but because I think the solution is probably the same. Look, let's be honest. The president got up about a month ago after he gave $40 billion to Argentina and told him he was going to import meat and said, you know what, we're going to crack down on the consolidation, which, by the way, it would be a great thing to do. It would be a great thing to do to insert more competition in the marketplace and make capitalism work. But what can Congress do? Not the president. What can Congress do?
Yeah.
'Cause it's really their job.
Yeah, Congress. I mean, so first and foremost, Congress could amend our antitrust laws to require action to be taken. They could amend, as Senator Warren has proposed, to amend our anti-price gouging laws to make it easier for DOJ and FTC and others to take action when grocers are taking more than their fair share of out of the till. So and they could reassert their authority over tariffs. So as you know, Senator, a lot of the tariffs have been implemented in ways that violate the law, and but most folks in Congress, or let's just say a slim majority, because they're all in one party of folks in Congress, have stood by while the administration has taken away their powers to decide when to apply these tariffs.
Yeah. I mean, it will never cease to amaze me how the folks in Congress, both the House and the Senate, are advocating for their Washington, D.C. bosses rather than advocating for the people who elected them, for their constituents. It will never cease to amaze me. I mean, there's always been those claims, but man, it is absolutely 100% true right now. You got folks back there serving that forgot they were from Montana or forgot they were from Indiana or forgot what state they came from.
Yep.
And they just do whatever the president wants to do. No questions asked because they think the only reason they got elected was because of the president. And they may be true because a lot of them don't have a lot of skills. Okay.
Well, well, and there are real world consequences too. It's hard to see who the winners are other than the President Trump and the folks who are paying fealty to him. I mean, the losers are all of us who are paying more at the grocery store, but it's also all the folks who are losing export markets that they've fought to build for generations. And when you look at what's happening with soybeans and the loss of China as an export market to Brazil and Argentina, you just have to wonder, who's the winner here if we're using our tariff policy to raise the cost of food and simultaneously make it harder for farmers who export to earn a living. I'm not sure. I'm not an economist, so I can't really explain that. Maybe you can.
So no, I can't. But can you explain to me why the president of the so-called conservative party, the Republicans, is saying, so to solve this problem, just like we're going to try to solve the healthcare problem, to solve the problem that's going on in family farms, we're going to take $12 billion, which, by the way, is not near enough to take care of the problem. But we're going to take 12 billion bucks, and we're just going to write you guys all checks because we know you'd rather get your check from the federal government than you would from the marketplace. Can you explain to me what the hell goes into that philosophy?
I think they called them bridge payments for a reason because they're sort of a bridge to nowhere. It's and I always think of a bridge payment as something you make when you've really screwed up and you have to go to the bank and ask for a little bit more money to get through the end of the month, right? So the thing that's so frustrating about the $12 billion that they're giving to farmers in a bailout to offset the impacts of their tariffs is that only a few thousand farmers will get more than a pittance. They're using the same formula that they've always used to give out commodity subsidies, which means the largest, most successful operators will get tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments, while the vast majority of farmers either completely ineligible because they don't grow the 22 commodities that are eligible for those subsidies, or just don't grow a lot. And so the payments they'll get maybe will be a few $1,000s. So it comes right back to the problem, which is when you plow all this money into farm country and you send it to the largest, most successful operators, what is the effect? Well, first and foremost, you're going to drive up the cost of farm equipment because everybody who works at the Deere dealership is paying attention, and you're going to drive up the cost of buying and renting land because anyone who owns land in rural places is paying attention. So all those dollars will get sucked up by folks who will just make it more expensive to farm.
Yeah. And then you'll also end up with even more consolidation. More family farms will go broke, being bought out by the bigger guys because they'll have cash flow to be able to do it. and it'll make our food security less secure. I mean, it's everything is connected here, and it all starts out with things like tariffs, and then you pile on the fact that uh, a lot of people in this administration don't think science is worth paying any attention to. So we're going to get rid of all the R&D. Which, by the way, if you're in agriculture, R&D is absolutely the only way you're going to maintain profitability under these conditions.
Right.
By the way.
Research and development is what he means.
Research research and development, right. Give me for the acronym, I'm sorry. And then the consolidation that's been around for over 100 years, which continues to get worse and worse and worse. We're not doing things to stop that consolidation on the input side of things, and by the policies that are coming out, through the Farm Bill and others, we're actually encouraging consolidation on the ground, and then at the farm gate. And why? Because what kid is gonna come take over the farm when they know that they're not gonna make enough to, to be able to go out to the movies on a Saturday night? And by the way, I say that with all truthfulness because Maritza always asks me if I see a movie, and I've never. I think Shawshank Redemption was the last one I saw. So
That's the last movie you saw in the theater?
I don't even think I saw that in the theater. I think I saw it from the house. Yeah, I think it was Jaws, actually. 1975.
'Cause you can't afford it?
That's like 20 years before you were born. No, it's not on my list of things that, uh, of high priority things to do. And if you don't have a lot of dough, you spend the money on things you
Yeah.
really wanna do. And you know what? Going to the movies and eating a bunch of popcorn isn't exactly high on my list. It is on some, and I'm not knocking it, but the truth is it all speaks to profitability, and the profitability is getting less and less and less and less and less. And I say that, after being on the farm for 50 years, we have seen it, and my folks saw it for the 35 years before that,
No,
it's
I
crazy.
mean, if you just let it be first, I'm going to go ahead and quote the Farm Bureau, which reported just in the last few weeks that farmers who grow the bulk commodities have seen the cost of producing those crops exceed the profits, the money they're earning, for 5 straight years.
Yeah.
So the solution to that is not to close markets to farmers growing bulk commodities. Most of those markets are overseas, not here in the United States. So the solution to that is opening markets for those crops and then helping farmers find other domestic markets for those crops. And instead, we're just throwing money at the problem as a bridge payment. Again, it's the kind of payment you make when you've really screwed up. And so I just the thing that we can't do, but we're already, of course, that's the first thing the Trump people are doing, is cutting wages for farm workers. I mean, I just can't imagine of all the things that you have and certainly labor costs have gone up, and that's a reason why food prices, especially food we buy in restaurants away from home, is going up because the cost of paying restaurant workers, farm workers, food processing workers has gone up. And that's probably overall a good thing. Those people have been really underpaid for a long time. They're still underpaid by any measure. But the first thing the Trump people want to do is cut the amount that we in particular pay the H2A workers. And that's a ridiculous solution to a problem of their own making.
How does when we talk about labor, how does what we're seeing with the immigration crackdowns, how does that play into this conversation?
Well, it's the opposite sides of the same coin, right? So where on the one hand, we're making it such that people are just afraid to go to work. There's obviously some kind of handshake agreement for the moment between our Secretary of Agriculture and our HHS Secretary not to target farm workers and restaurant workers, but that will only last as long as they meet the quotas that they've set for themselves to deport people. So people are increasingly afraid to go to work. That means there's labor shortages. We turned more and more to our H-2A visa program that allows us to bring foreign workers here temporarily to work on farms. But instead of paying them properly and housing them properly, we're cutting their wages, and which are low to begin with. And so Who's going to leave Mexico to come here for a short time knowing how we treat people from Mexico right now to work for less money? One other factor that doesn't get talked about much is it's not only harder to find folks, in America to do what is hard work, it's harder and harder to find people from Mexico to do this hard work. It's hard work and it doesn't pay very well. So I think in the long run, those labor costs are going to keep going up. And if we want to keep the price of food inflation to a manageable level, we need to be looking other places than cutting wages for some of the poorest people in the country.
Yeah. The other thing I would add to that is, there's a lot of people, that don't live in rural America that thinks that just anybody can come out and do these jobs. And, they may not be the highest skill jobs in the world, but not just anybody can do them. I'm just telling you. I mean, um, we don't pick bales like we used to, but it's a prime example. We're picking rock. You go out and pick rock for a day. There's not a lot of people that will continue to go out the second day and do that, because it literally is backbreaking work. So we got to wind this down a little bit, much to Maritza's chagrin.
I
You
don't
are
have any friends. You're my only friends, okay?
you're king for a day, Scott Faber. What are the three things you do as king of the day to lower food costs?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would immediately reduce tariffs, especially on the healthier foods that we don't produce here that are we've slapped tariffs and reciprocal tariffs anywhere from 10 to 30%. So, and not every farmer is going to love that, but if we can import seafood like shrimp and salmon and immediately lower the costs of that by eliminating those tariffs, we can reduce the price of foods people should be eating more of, adding more of to their diet. The second thing that we should do in the medium term is really try to produce more of our energy cheaply, and that doesn't mean taking more of it out of the ground and producing fossil energy. It means producing more of our energy from renewable energy. The cheapest way to produce electricity is wind and solar, not more gas-fired electricity plants. And so that would be the second thing I do. And then, to your point, Senator Maritza, I would just go all in on R&D, in part because of the risk of things like avian flu. We need to make sure
Mhm.
that we're prepared for the things that can really disrupt food prices, and avian flu. And I'll add a bonus. I continue to worry, and of course all of us are thinking about what's happening in Washington State right now with the flooding.
Yeah.
That the extreme weather that so many farmers are experiencing is going to also be a big factor in food inflation. We need to invest more to make sure that our farms are resilient, that they're being farmed in ways that make sure that farmers can withstand the more and more extreme weather we're going to face.
And it wouldn't hurt to do something about climate change. Let me tell you what's going on in Montana right now as we speak. There's predicting rainfall in the middle of December, major rainfall. We've
Wow.
already had it. We already had it this last week, so we're seeing flooding like crazy. And the upshot of this is, if we don't have snowpack in the mountains, and the snowpack is leaving in December, we don't have snowpack in those mountains, it's gonna be a hell of a fire season next year. I'll just tell you that. Not to say there ain't gonna be a lot of fish in the rivers, because the rivers ain't gonna have a lot of water in them. So you're spot on dealing with resiliency on the ground, and doing the kind of things we need to do with the climate change, because the climate is a changing, I'll tell you. Biggest rain we got this year was the middle of harvest. It's crazy,
Wow.
crazy. It's
Incredible.
not.
That's nuts.
Scott Faber, thank you very much for being
Thanks,
on. Reese,
Scott.
you have a final thought? Do you have
Uh,
do you have any thoughts? Or
well, I just keep coming back to whether we're talking about this or so many other things, it's the lower income Americans that are disproportionately affected.
Yep.
And how do we fix that?
Well,
Well,
it's not by kicking them off Snap, that's for sure. I mean, people like us spend about, maybe 10% of our income on food. If you're in the lowest 20% of Americans in terms of income, you're spending about 30% of your income on food. And so any of these increases in food prices, whether it's because grocers are taking more than they should or because of flu or war, really fall heaviest on the poorest of us.
point well taken. And, hopefully somebody's watching this so they can write up some policies and maybe introduce them into the Senate or the House, and get some work done, because I don't think it has to be this way. And I think with a Congress that actually read the Constitution and understands what Article 1 says, they could actually go out and actually do some good policy, and not just rubber stamp what the Article 2 part of our government's doing, the administration.
Amen.
Maritza, anything else?
No, not from Scott, but I will ask you about your hat. Do you want if Scott can stay on for that if he wants.
I'd love to. I wanna hear
So,
about that.
yeah, so I get a lot of hats, when I was a US senator and still get a few. This is, Kinsey, Montana, which is a metropolis in, southeastern Montana that, kinda like in between Miles City and Terry and Circle in that neck of the woods. And, it probably has something to do with their post office. They were probably gonna take the post office away. Hopefully, they still have it. And I'm surprised you didn't cover it when you were a reporter.
I'm surprised too. I mean, we
Yeah,
covered a lot of post office stuff, but,
yeah,
Kinsey.
Kinsey. Kinsey, that's a great name, it is just really a great name. It's short, easy to spell, and memorable, so,
All
yeah.
right. Well, we wanna thank our guest, Scott Faber, for helping us understand, food inflation and this moment we're at. We wanna thank Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. We wanna thank all of you, our guests, for listening and watching, and I think that's it.
Thank you, Doctor Faber. We
Great to see you, Senator. Thanks for everything you've done for us.
that